You have courted a lot of controversy with our friends and perhaps people who are more antagonistic towards Great Britain amidst the Brexit process with your speech yesterday. And I want to quote you verbatim and then get your response, if I may. What you said was the EU was set up to protect freedom. It was the Soviet Union that stopped people leaving. Now, that has upset an enormous number of people on the continent. Do you just want to explain where you were going with these comments?
Absolutely, Steve. And I think any sensible reading of the speech would see that this was a passionate request, desire for friendship with our European neighbours going forward. But what I was saying is, if the attitude of the EU is that someone who wants to leave the club has to be punished, then that's not consistent with European ideals. And we were set up, the EU was set up partly to stand firm against Soviet totalitarianism. And I'm just pointing out the contradiction that that's what we were set up to stop. And I think that that's why the EU's attitude does need to change in these negotiations. They need to sit down, they need to say, over the next 10, 20 years, what's mattered for Europe is that strong partnership between the UK and continental Europe. That's what's given us peace and prosperity. Let's not tear that up.
But, Foreign Secretary, even Jacob Rees-Mogg said to me yesterday he didn't feel that the EU was doing anything other than being tough negotiators. In fact, he was very complimentary about Michel Barnier as well. So are you mistaking tough, authoritarian-type behaviour with actually being tough negotiators?
I've no problem about people being tough negotiators, but it's the outcome I care about. And what I want is a friendship, a partnership with Europe, based on an understanding as to what has given us the peace and prosperity that we've had since 1945. And I think if the EU's attitude is that they want to, put us on the naughty step, put us in the sin bin, and Britain has to be punished, then that will undermine that friendship, and that will be a bad thing for the whole of Europe.
But you are a seasoned politician, sir. You know the value of your words and actions and the proximity of the word EU to Soviet as well. And I'm pretty sure you're not saying the EU is like the former Soviet Union. But the proximity of those words puts you in a similar bracket to perhaps Mr. Tusk, who's taking the mickey out of the Prime Minister with cakes, or Mr. Macron, who's calling Brexiteers liars. Doesn't it lower the tone, sir?
Well, I think you have to look at the argument I was making, and I think if you read that speech, as I say, it's absolutely clear. I'm not saying that the EU is like the Soviet Union, but what I am saying is that if their view that the only outcome of these talks that is acceptable to the EU is for the UK to lose out, the UK to be punished for taking a decision to leave the club, and that is against the very ideals that the EU was set up to defend, and that's the wrong step, and that's why I think if it's a negotiating tactic, then fine, that's negotiations. But actually what I care about is really what the outcome is, what the destination is they're heading to, and what I think I want and what I think the British people want is a friendship and a partnership with Europe.
Critics of this conference, sir, have said it's as much about a beauty pageant as it is about getting policy going forward as well. Was that part of your audition for a job that may or may not turn up in the future, i.e. becoming the Prime Minister of the UK?
Absolutely not, and I want Theresa May to stay as Prime Minister. I want her to stay for a very long time. I said in my speech that she's doing an incredibly difficult job. She's doing it very, very well, and if there's one mistake that the Europeans can make right now, it is to underestimate Theresa May, her resolve and her determination, and I think she will get us a great deal. I think she's the only person who can really do that now, and I think we should all be backing her.
And the other strong speech yesterday was from your colleague Dominic Raab as well, Secretary for leaving the EU. And I thought he said, don't push us, pretty much. We'll be polite about this, but don't push us, we will walk away. Is it possible in your mind that the UK will still walk away with a no deal?
It certainly is possible, because Theresa May will not sign any deal that is not compatible with the letter and spirit of the referendum. So if we aren't able to get an agreement which is what the British people voted for, then we will deliver what they voted for, so we would walk away. But it's not our preferred outcome, and I don't think it will be the outcome.
Sir, I've got one more question I'm told I can have for you, and let me just go there on the issue of Russia. The attitude of Russia putting GRU agents, it appears, on the streets of Salisbury and committing a murder, that is the accusation that has been levelled against the Kremlin as well, sir. Does this make Russia our greatest foe going forward in the United Kingdom and indeed throughout Western Europe?
Well, I think it is aggressive behaviour, it's unacceptable behaviour, and it's not just about a bilateral dispute between Britain and Russia. This is the first time that chemical weapons have been used on British soil. It's a very, very big thing, and for the world to move from the situation where it was unacceptable for anyone to use chemical weapons, which is basically what we've had, to one where chemical weapons use becomes normalised, would be a tragic step backwards. So, our message to Russia is this is not acceptable, it's against the international rules, and the price will always be too high if you do this.
I'm told that's all I've got, but just to confirm, the EU is not like the Soviet Union. These are your words, sir.
No, and they've got to be very careful that the way they behave in these negotiations is consistent with European ideals, and I don't think we've been seeing that.
Hey everybody, it's Hadley Gamble from our new CNBC Middle East Bureau in Abu Dhabi. Thanks for stopping by. Now to watch more, you can try one of the videos that just popped up on your screen. And don't forget to subscribe.